Welcome back. You're watching the I-24 News Desk. I'm Tal Heinrich, and we continue our extended news update for this hour with the Quds march that takes place in London today. Thousands of advocates have called on London Mayor Sadiq Khan to cancel the upcoming anti-Israel rally in the British capital due to concerns that the march propagates displays of anti-Semitism and terrorism. The controversial event is scheduled to be held in the UK as part of the annual Al-Quds Day, which Iran initiated back in 1979 to express support for the Palestinians and opposition of Israel's existence. It's usually held on the last Friday of the holy Muslim month of Ramadan. By this morning, an online petition was addressed to the London mayor. It pointed to the demonstration's participants in previous years brandishing flags with the symbols of terrorist groups Hamas and Hezbollah. Now, to discuss this further, we're joined on set once again by I-24 News London correspondent Jonathan Sacerdoti. Jonathan, the Al-Quds Day is usually a controversial event, but is it even more controversial this year due to the latest terror incidents in the kingdom?
Of course it is, because, you know, we've seen 3 recent terrorist attacks in quick succession in the United Kingdom. The one in Manchester, the one on Westminster Bridge, and also the one on London Bridge. So British people are obviously finely attuned to the issues of terrorism and extremism. So to see people marching in London waving Hezbollah flags might be quite a shock for many, even though it's been going on for years, especially when one of the ringleaders, the ringleader terrorist in the London Bridge attacks, was seen holding an ISIS flag in a park in London on a Channel 4 documentary in the UK not long before he carried out that attack. So people might be thinking that there's a clear link between waving terrorist flags at one point and then later carrying out terror attacks in London.
Jonathan, let's now go to London to someone who will be participating in a counter-protest to the Al-Quds March. Mandy Blumenthal, thanks for joining us on the phone. Mandy, is the counter-protest bigger this year as a result of the recent wave of terror in London?
Yes, we believe that it will be much bigger. We've got people joining us from all over the country. I know people that have travelled up from Manchester, people that are coming from Wales. I do believe there's even people coming from Scotland, because they're absolutely enraged by the fact that this march that is able to go ahead, not everybody is a terrorist or a terrorist supporter, but there will be people among the march that definitely are.
And Mandy, briefly, as a Jewish citizen of Britain, tell us, do you feel more threatened nowadays?
I feel as though our days are numbered in Britain. I'm extremely skeptical about Jewish future unless we put a stop to the current wave of anti-Semitism and acceptance of terrorism here in England.
Mandy Blumenthal, thank you so much for this. And Jonathan, I want to ask you, since you mentioned the flags of the Hezbollah and the organizers of these protests also called on people participating to show up with those banners, what's the approach in the UK towards Hamas and Hezbollah?
Well, specifically, the banning of waving of terrorist flags is a complicated piece of law. And under the Terrorism Act of 2000, there is something saying that it's illegal to wave a flag of a terrorist organization and show support. However, the Metropolitan Police have chosen to interpret the waving of Hezbollah flags in this instance as possibly supporting what they call the political wing of Hezbollah. So even while Hezbollah itself rejects that distinction, the British Metropolitan Police are saying that they can't arrest people on that basis because it's not clear they're supporting terrorism.
Do you believe that people in London make the separation between terror taking place affecting their homes and terror taking place probably here in Israel, as we talked before about the Jerusalem attack, the Palestinian cause, that some people see it related as part of one bigger problem?
It's an interesting question, and when I've been covering the aftermath of terror attacks around Europe and also now in the UK, it's something that I do ask people. And what I'm beginning to detect perhaps is a shift. People are starting to see that Islamist terrorism around the world has certain commonalities. While they do seem to separate issues such as the Israeli-Arab conflict and the idea of a potential Palestinian state and those things which are said to influence terrorism in the UK, there is some sense, I think, among most people that there is something in common, that fundamentalist Islamic thought, such as Islamist thought, is going to be influencing people to potentially carry out those sorts of attacks, both in the UK, just as they've been doing for decades here in Israel or elsewhere in the Middle East.
Thank you so much for this, Jonathan Sacerdoti.